What is stopping Expedition 3? What should I say this?
33.
What is potentially stopping Expedition 33 from winning Game of the Year?
I don't know, man. Game was great.
I think it's got it. I don't.
I don't think there's any like. It's basically everything I wanted in like a turn-based game possible. The graphics were good, except for there were some cutscenes that I'm sure we all know where we saw like the plants kind of that were like flowing and they were like pixelated. I thought that was hilarious. But story was fantastic, gameplay fantastic. It innovated on a genre that has only been, in my opinion, turn-based games. Like, I haven't played the Pokemon ones because they look so boring. Like especially the new ones.
Okay.
So you have like what Persona, which kind of innovates, like at least it makes it fun, right? With like the flashy stuff that they do. Mm-hmm. But this game, like turn-based games, it's like, oh, I hit my turn and then I just wait. But no, like this game, it's like every turn is like, if I don't parry this, like I'm gonna die. I'm gonna fucking die. And if I do parry it, my next turn's better because I get more ability points to do whatever I want.
The reason I asked this question, the reason I put this question in here is I want to understand what its faults are. What about Expedition 33 was not good? People praise this game. People, it's becoming quickly a cult classic. I'm sure they're going to make more games.
It's a cult classic.
Well,
I think.
sorry, I don't want to misphrase.
Nier's a cult classic on your shirt.
But, yeah, we're going to get to this in a sec. But a lot of people review the game. They love it and they want to see more of it. And I'm glad that it did as well as it did, being an indie development team and the elements that it added to it. But it's not a perfect game. Well, I just want to know what
there weren't any microtransactions. That's what I didn't like about it.
Micro what?
Transactions. Like, there were some, like, I was like, man, I just want to buy my way.
I can earn the skins,
so
I don't want to do that.
So win Game of the Year.
Buy it. If when I had to play that volleyball game, that game sucked. That's what basically not Game of the Year. That game sucked.
To win Game of the Year, you're gonna have critics, right? Like, what about the game is not good that you can say without being biased?
I do think well, okay, so one thing that I did notice is the mini games were jank as fuck, in a sense where it's like
the gestural mini games,
the jump games. Like the game obviously wasn't made for those purposes, so it didn't have those like fine-tuned controls to do like the jumping, so you would just like it just like wouldn't work sometimes.
Right.
But I feel like that was part of the mini games of like, oh, these aren't supposed to work as well. That was kind of like my biggest complaint. I know like the gestural mini games, like I just felt like when I was doing the games, like, wow, like I really feel like these are just not what the game was built for. Like they built this engine and they built these in, put these in for fun. That's a complaint I have. Like the mini games, I think for a complaint that you could have is you get too overpowered. You can get too overpowered and the game is just way too easy at a certain point. Like there's a point where I'm like, when I beat the final boss, Simon, like I skipped the entire last phase of the boss because I didn't know there was one, because I just killed him. I took him from 40% to dead. And then like apparently there's this whole phase where your main party gets killed and you have to beat him with your spare party. Like that's just part of it. And I fought him and beat him a couple times just for fun. I didn't know that because I just kept killing him from 50% health. So I think the big constraint, maybe that's a valid complaint, because I just don't get to experience part of the game.
Yeah. So I don't really. So that is one interesting part of it. The balancing of it is certainly wonky.
The balancing is very wonky.
And like I found myself, I was doing max damage with my main characters way too easily, and I found myself making my build do as many attacks as possible rather than max damage, because I didn't know there was going to be a way to do more than max 99 damage. Yeah. So when I got to the end game, I was kind of disincentivized from like playing the game and doing the extra content, because I would have to like completely change how I played the game, because it's about doing as much damage as possible in the late game. As far as I can tell, I haven't like went and done all that.
You have to have that Picto equipped to do millions of damage.
Yeah, so like I designed my thing to play around the fact that I could only do 999 whatever damage and just do it like 8,000 as much as possible, you know,
yeah.
because that was more, that's going to do more damage long term.
Yeah.
So that's one big pitfall of the game, is that it's not very mathematically balanced. And on that mathematical balance issue, I think that just the pacing of the game in multiple ways, we'll talk about it just mechanically for right now. Whenever you start, like, before I start trash talking, I do love this game. I wouldn't bring it up on a podcast and talk about it if I didn't love this game. I think it's great. It's one of the best. I don't play single player games, so when I play single player games, there's a reason, right? I do not like that you go to the overworld and you have access to all these zones and for no reason whatsoever. Like, why can I go into these danger zones? Somebody who isn't metagaming and knows how it works late game, why do I have access to these places? Like, why are they there? You know, like, why is the map so big if I'm just gonna go on a linear path anyway, right? Like, why is it set up like that? So I don't know.
I think that's a fair complaint. What I kind of did in that sense was I just like railroaded myself down the main quest line and didn't bother, because I was like, I don't understand how I'm supposed to figure out what these side quest areas are without something pointing me there or just looking it up online. So I decided to not explore those places. But from the gameplay aspect, I personally liked how they capped your damage at 999, and then later like, oh, by the way, you don't have to cap it anymore.
It is an interesting way to balance it.
I was like,
right?
this is a very interesting way. I thought it was a very unique way to balance it. However, but in your perspective, I think you like the unique case you had, like you built everything around the fact that I'm not going to deal max damage. And then at one point it's like, oh, now you deal max damage and it's uncapped, and it's like, oh, whatever. So I think that's a part. The balancing is wonky. The mini game's a bit wonky. That's kind of my main gripes of it, because I felt like at a certain point there was no challenge. Like, I played the game because it was a lot of fun, not because the bosses were challenging, because I was just dumpstering them, right? Like, you just put all these multiplicative Pictos together, and now you're dealing millions of damage in the dead. So
maybe you might get more value out of playing it on the harder mode. I haven't played it. But like, to be fair, like there is for most people who play video games, you kind of just get it faster. So like, you're not like, there's so many mechanics whenever you first start off. Like, God, there was just so many mechanics. I just had no idea what was going on. I didn't even want to like bother learning how the stains worked. I was just like, fuck it, it's just doing damage. I don't really care. But once you understand that, like, hey, your party is finite, you can really dive into the characters. You really understand how the Pictos and everything work. Then you get it, and then like there's like nothing really left to learn, and then you end up in that position where you're just doing tons of damage and there's no really challenge to it anymore. But I didn't do the end game stuff, so I can't really speak on, you know, I haven't gone and fought Simon or whatever else. But aside from mechanically, I think
story wise,
I'm going to go into the graphics a bit.
Sure.
It's a very beautiful looking game. But it still has how do I explain it? The characters don't really mesh well with themselves. They clip constantly through their own stuff, which just agitates the fuck out of me. But if you look at like Valheim, right? Like, you could just like you can step back, everything's in, you know, pixels, but like you can see it looks beautiful, right? And that's what I get from looking at Clair Obscure. I'm like less annoyed by the fact that the little things aren't like kind of interactive with each other, because I know the overall image is really nice, but I would like that to be less distracting, because it's pretty distracting, particularly at the beginning of the game.
I think the graphics could be better. I'm not somebody who, the graphics have to be like really bad for me to be like, this game sucks, right? But most of the time I just don't care about graphics, because personally I used to look at games as they had, like, I just want everything, right? I want everything to be perfect. But now I look at, as like a developer myself, I look at games as like, what's practical to make? And I appreciate if a game has graphics that are good enough to keep me immersed, but not good enough that would have taken away from the story. Because in my mind, the graphics were better, the story has to get worse, because it has to come from somewhere. Now, that's not always true. Maybe you could have had both, but in a realistic development world with timelines, like, something has to give. If the graphics are better, and I was really happy with everything else, so I'm fine with the graphics. Like, that's what my stance on that is.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have too much of a complaint about the graphics.
Yeah. Graphics, music, I can't really complain. Oh, well, there was one small complaint.
Music's amazing. Go
Yeah,
on. Sorry.
I still listen to the music when I work out to this day, and I beat the game like a month ago.
Yeah, the opening screen, the main screen music is so good. Like I just kind of put like sometimes I would just turn the game on, have my speakers on, and just like put my laundry away while I'm listening to it. I'm like, this music is sick.
Yeah, it's like it's the element of like you don't have to understand what they're saying to just like kind of feel the music, right? But I will say when listening to specifically the OST outside of the game, it is kind of repetitive the way that they go about, like they only really like mention lyrics that are like based off of like characters in the game, or like they say the same words over and over again. There's not a lot of like depth to it, but you know, tone out. It's still composed really well. It still like gets me excited. What were we gonna?
I was just gonna point out real quick that the soundtrack, because I looked it up. I'm like, okay, how much am I missing? Because I don't speak French. I looked it up, and I was looking at all these Reddit threads, and there's all these people trying to decode what the heck it's saying, because it's actually not all in French.
Oh, really?
Some is French, some is English, and they pulled a freaking Enya and made up some like emotional like. Not real thing.
So it just sounds like French.
So it just sounds like something, but it's not always something.
Okay.
And
That's what
even
they did
when
in
you
Nier Automata.
Really?
They like combine a bunch of languages to make their choral whatever it is language in there. Yeah.
Yeah, but like the point of the songs is, even if you do translate it to French, or if you do hear the English bits, it is at most one idea expressed, and usually it's just a word that means something. Clarity. Or light, obscure, darkness, or hard to see. And they'll just say that stuff over and over again, evoking more of a feeling, kind of like a painting, right? A painting doesn't tell you what it's about all the time, but it evokes a feeling more than it actually tells you something.
Yeah, it's just like when I listen to 042, I don't give a shit what it's saying.
Right.
I just know it gets me hyped.
Exactly. But that's what I appreciate about the soundtrack.
Yes, music's very good. So getting down to the actual pacing of the game, this is where my biggest complaints come in for Clair Obscure.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think one, I get that there's a mystery, and it's less interesting if there isn't a mystery that's like kind of spelled out too easily. But I felt like the first 85% of the game, I'm like, what's going on? And then the last 15% is just a big exposition dump.
Yeah.
And that was my biggest complaint about the game, is that like I'll get on the shore, Renoir's there murdering people, whatever, I get it, there's some mystery, and then I'll just like walk, and I'll end up in an area where there's whales swimming over my head, and they're just like, all right, we need to go over there. I'm like, what do you mean? There's fucking whales swimming over your head. Are you gonna think about like why this matters at all? Like, so that was kind of a big thing for me. Is like, yes, it looks nice. It's a very beautiful game, and they're very ambitious about like how big they made the game for the story that they wanted to tell.
Yeah.
But I think that it kind of has its shortcomings in that like I did not understand what was going on until the very end of the game, and then like 2 hours after that I had to make a decision on all of that information just shotgunned in my face.
Can I ask, sorry Eric, but can I ask how quickly you ended the game after getting to Act 3?
I think I had a little bit more time to digest. I didn't just get to Act 3 and finish. I think I got to Act 3 I don't know, because I was like really into this game, and then it just kind of ended. I honestly don't remember when I got the expedition dump, and then how long until after that I finished the game. I share the sentiment of the expedition dump. I wasn't a huge fan of. Like, you kill the paintress, everyone dies, Maya wakes up, they say all these kind of vague, not completely descriptive things that give you an idea of what's going on in the world, and then you kind of go back in, and like that's kind of it. I'm not a fan of expedition dumps. I'm more of a fan of like showing, not telling. I felt like it was a fine use, like of a good use of the best use of expedition dumping I've seen in a while in terms of a storytelling tool. Because most of the times, like if you watch any movies, like it's just like, oh yeah, like we have to explain everything. Like if you've seen the new Star Wars, so like, oh yeah, like it had to go be that way because of this. And
I think it's more that like the story was effectively unsolvable leading up to that.
Yeah,
There's
like you
no
had
way
no
I could
way.
have taken. They're like, yes, there's. You go back and you replay the game, and you're like watching a friend play. Like you see, like all this stuff makes sense, like with the Shadow Boy and everything like
Yeah.
that, like it being Versa or whatever
Yeah.
else. But like, there's no way to piece it together while you're playing through the game, which is fine to an extent, but like when so much of the impact of the game is based off of the
Yeah.
exposition, I think that it loses a lot of its luster in that specific department.
I could see that being a complaint. I also felt like the final act was kind of rushed in a sense where you got this big expedition dump and now you're ending the game, right? I would have maybe liked to see it stretched out a little bit more. However, like I did like the story, but the expedition dump was my biggest gripe because you just get so much information so fast and you're just being told how the world is and you're not really experiencing it. And then you're back, and then you have to make the decision. So yeah, I'd say that would be. If we're talking about game of the year, that would be the gripe. I think the mini games, when you go off the beaten path and do the mini games, that's not great. I think the graphics could be they could be better for sure. They're good.
The micro
could be better.
graphics.
Yeah, the mic, yeah, for sure.
Details.
Yeah.
Like those fine details could be better. I'd say the balance. And then I would say potentially the pacing at the very end was rushed.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, because like they give you the option. Because like if you look at it, it's like if a lot of people decide to go in Act 3, like you were bringing up earlier, and do all of Act 3 and then beat the game, well, then you run into the issue of that your character's stupid powerful.
Right.
Then
Right.
like you don't really get like a challenging end to the game. So it's like. What is the ideal way to beat Expedition 33? You can either beat it and just not feel like you had time to process what was going on, or you can process what was going on and just be super powerful, and then the whole game's just kind of trivial.
Sure.
Yeah, I think basically every game suffers that has the ability to do side quests.
Yeah.
Like suffers from that.
Yeah.
Like you can farm more and make the boss easier. It's just like when do you want to do that? I don't know how an experience / level based game solves that because it's very obvious if you don't have experiential levels, you just, get good, right? You have 3 hits, you get hit 3 times, you're dead, right? And maybe that's something they could have incorporated in it if they really wanted to do it. Like, I don't know, like maybe the super old Mario 64 games where you're like the 2-dimensional ones, like if you fall, if you die, get hit with other things if you don't. Like you just have like a finite resource of life that cannot be increased no matter what you do. Maybe that's how they could balance it better because, yeah, I don't know.
I feel like you can scale. I don't feel like scaling is just a percentage. You just tack on everything, right?
Yeah.
You
I
say
think the
this is
problem-
the end boss. It will always be X harder than you within a certain margin.
I think the problem is you have to balance that because like what metric do you go off of? Do you go off of like, because that would require the developers to have a full understanding of the combinations of pictos that you can make to make you powerful, which is impossible effectively because we've never, like, we always see there's imbalance in games and it takes hours of thousands upon thousands of maybe even millions of people playing the game and interacting with it to find what is that X 10% better than everything else.
No, and I think that they did a good job by like peaking the amount of damage you can do for the main story.
I think that was they maybe should have also peaked your health too, and like that, like the health portion. It's like, oh, like you can only take X amount of hits before you have to parry to like regain your health.
That's a balancing thing too, right? So like maybe damage should be percentage based, not like hey, this is what the stat is, and that's how it modifies, and it comes out to a damage thing. But again, those are like my major gripes. About the game that I think that if I was looking at it from a serious critique standpoint would hold it back if I had to like go against something else extremely different. Like let's say it was going against Elden Ring, right? It's much harder to justify Game of the Year against something like Elden Ring.